Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You get more information, listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Tony Bayles, who's an artist, among other things. And welcome aboard, Tony.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and what you can do, you can wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this. And that is
I,
Tony Bayles. And Tony, the first question I always ask when I speak to somebody is, in terms as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in North Louisiana. That's opposite from the other country, which is New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, and when you were a kid, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
I didn't even know what an artist was. I was born and raised in a Southern Baptist home, and our focus was on eating and going to church as many days of the week and doing the schoolwork and doing a few things around the house, and me running to the woods for 6 hours until I heard the horn blow and a holler out going, "Boy, you better get home. The sun's going down. It's time to eat dinner." So, yeah, I was always in the woods as a little child because we had thousands of acres just of raw nature and virgin trees in many locations and pine forests. And I would just wander until I'd hear the blowing of the horn to come back, or I would be like, okay, it's time to go home because I'm sick of being in the woods.
And so what then sort of made you want to become an artist?
So just through the years, I was being very creative, even as a child. And just in Louisiana, my father was even like, well, when you get ready to work, I can get you a job at the power plant, at the chemical plant, and you can be over there and make good money right away. And I was like, if you want to watch me die, let's do that. So I knew I had to be creative. So when I started in college, I only went for 2.5 years, 2 years basically to college. And I started out in vocal performance with scholarships. And then I went straight from vocal to was like, ooh, art? Oh my gosh, this looks great. And so I played and dabbled in that. And then I was in interior design for a little while. And then I was in a singing group and I was standing up on a stool and listening. And I broke both of the small bones between your thumb and your wrist. And I was in cast up to my elbows, and I moved in with 7 guys, and they had to actually come and bathe me and help me with all the stuff. They shaved my head, and the girls came in and brushed my teeth from the group and put my rubber bands on my braces.
How old
So,
were you
yeah,
then?
I was 19, 20. I was 20. I was 20 because I started in school at 18, 19, 20. I was 20. So I was in casts and then slowly got chopped down until they were smaller. But I was in casts for 6.5, 7 weeks. And so one of the guys would give me a shower. The other one was going to drive me off. It's like, oh, I got to go to work. Well, I got to get out of here. I got to go to class. So I'd walk around naked in the house going, will somebody just help me put on some damn clothes? And they would feed me by dumping McDonald's, the chicken nuggets on a plate with a pile of ketchup, and I could wash my face underneath the sink and dry off with a towel. So anyway, yeah. So that's my experience of college and growing up and, getting out of into the city, I guess, basically.
So you eventually got out of these casts. Then what happened?
I didn't go back to school because I was like, I'm not a good student. I've only gotten 16 hours credit in 2 years. I love doing window display because I did the window display at a women's clothing store called Gerald's Clothing. It was an upper end clothing store. Women came from all around that whole entire region to shop there. They had really the finest clothes for that region. So I did that. And then I was like, wait a minute. I need to go to Dallas. I need to get out of here. I can't stay around mom and dad because they're like, you're gay? You're going to die and rot in hell. And I was like, well, if you think I'm going to rot in hell, you're going to die before me. So keep the fires warm. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I was there for about 3 years before I
Now,
moved back to Louisiana. But yeah,
you
decorating
mentioned
consultant.
you mentioned so the window dressing. So how did you pick that up? Just intuitively?
So, yeah, it's like I would help people. So I get to college and the Baptist Student Union, I was part of the Baptist Union because I was Southern Baptist. And so I started doing the set design behind the stage for chapel every day during college. We had a small, quick meeting around lunch. And so I started helping do set design stuff for that and doing simple little stage change ups and uh, just being creative, and found a lot of other creatives. So it was just like, wow. So the lady that was the wife of the guy who was the director at the Baptist Student Union, can't remember her name at the moment, but she was like, "Oh my gosh, Tony, Gerald's clothing store. They're my best friends. I love to shop there. They need window displays bad. It's just bad. They need them." So I got a job immediately.
And that's
And I
interesting.
did I did their window displays for 2.5 years.
And that's interesting because you've never done that before.
No, it was just creative and I just jumped in.
Yeah. So you did window dressing. You were doing that for a couple of years. What got you to this area?
Oh, so that was when I was 20. I moved to Dallas when I was 20. I moved back to Louisiana when I was 21. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in Illinois, did mission work in Honduras. I've lived in Lake Wells, Florida. Did some work in Fort Myers for a while. I lived in Cora, Wyoming. And the last place I was at was I moved with my husband of 10 years from Indianapolis. We had met at Mardi Gras on 2010. We were married for 10 great years. And it was like, you know what? The city of Atlanta, we moved there because he could get a better job there with Atlanta. And he was connected with everything that he needed and loved. And I was like, we've got the fifth and sixth floors in a building right here next to Piedmont Park. It's right next to the W Hotel. It's glorious. The house looks great, but I am done with the city because 38 high rises were going up in 2 years in Midtown alone. And Georgia Tech was expanding. And I was like, I need to go somewhere where I can see a tree planted by nature or Mother Earth, sit there for 6 hours, like from my childhood, and not have to hear a plane, hear a human, talk to anybody, and just watch nature and be at peace. And I said, I know I love myself enough and I love you enough to go, you're in the perfect place and I got to get the heck out of here. And that's when I was looking at Nashville, all the way to the coast, anywhere in this mountainous range, because it just seemed right. And I had met a group of guys with an organization that meets in the Highlands 2 to 3 times a year. And several of them lived here in Asheville. So I came up for a visit to Asheville. In fact, on this Sunday, one of the guys and his husband are coming up. I haven't seen them in a while, and I haven't met his husband from Arizona, I think. And they're coming over, and we're going to visit and hang out, and they're going to go see all the memorials that I built, and we're just going to visit for several hours on this Sunday. So, yeah.
So
Anyway, that's how I ended up in Asheville.
so in this area, you've been here how long?
I moved here in 2020, in April of 2020, in the height of lockdown.
I was
And
going to
I
say.
lived with an older gentleman that lived in near the Swananoa. Botany Gardens was one of the roads that was destroyed, just completely destroyed by the storm. And there's another little street that I would go on, and there were rocks into the stream, into the Swananoa. And that's where I did yoga every day, quite often. I would just sit there and meditate, and bears and deer would walk up on the other side of the stream. It was amazing. I was in heaven. But then I met Chris Tinkler, my partner, and he's actually the one who did the website for TonyBayles.com, talking about the memorial structures that I'm creating, along with volunteers that have been unbelievably helpful. Just random people that just come along and they're amazing. But so that's when I moved here in 2020, and we met, and then we ended up moving over near the Botanical Gardens in UNCA, and that's where I am now.
And by the way,
Um,
when you moved here, did you know what you wanted to do?
I've always known what I wanted to do. I love being creative. It doesn't matter if it's inside the house, outside the house, if I'm doing stitch work for 1,000 hours with beads and stitch work and fabrics. I just love being creative. I love using my mind and that creative force of creating and playing is what I call it with anything. That you can create something that changes your perception or that takes something that seems to be refuse and suddenly it's something beautiful and great and enjoyable and prized.
And what impresses me about you is also the fact that you seem to have the ability to do more than one thing at a time, and we'll talk a little bit about this. But before we started the interview, you showed me briefly around your place. You said you're working like 7 different projects simultaneously,
Yes.
or that's probably a low number.
No, that's about right. On Wednesday, I met this amazing firecracker of a woman who knows everybody everywhere. Her name is Pebbles, and she lives here across from the Greek church. I'm probably telling too much information now. Amazing woman. I met her at Five Points Cafe here in town, the local legend of a restaurant. And I just went in there because I was like, I can get oatmeal really quick before I run to this other project. So I'll go in there and just sit and be quiet for a minute, down some food, have a good meal, and then run out and go do my stuff. And we struck up a conversation and she showed me a picture of the piece that I built outside of Old Europe. And she said, wait, you said you like decorating and consulting and you like doing landscape? Wait a minute, let me show you. No, stop. You can't say another word. Let me show you something. And she showed me the picture of the piece that I made in front of Old Europe. And I kept zooming on the picture going, wow, that's really interesting. Wow, that's pretty. Oh my gosh. And look, there's all these stumps. Oh wait, what's that piece of paper back here? And I zoomed in on the little logo, the thing that I put there, the tag telling my name and memorial projects and the name of the piece. The name of that piece is called The Stage, so that artisans can come there and play their music live, and they're not in the sidewalk, they're not in the store or the shop, and they have a private space, not in traffic, and they're protected. It's like a stage just for them. And so that's why I called it Stage. I got in touch with the owner and talked with her, and she was like, oh my gosh, love it. And Abby, who is I think it's Mel, is the owner. If I say that wrong, please forgive me. And and I just for Abby is the assistant manager, and she was like, yeah, the store owner loves the idea. You've got to do this. So I'm talking with Pebbles at Five Points, and she says, look at that. Can you believe that? That's amazing. It struck me and pulled me in, and I just started to cry. It was so wonderful. And I went, what is that? Oh, look, there's a write-up here. It's called The Stage. And I was like, and I'd already introduced myself as Tony. And she said, look, that's your name. You did this. Holy. And she screamed out a 4-letter word and stood up on her stool and screamed out. And hardly anybody looked at her because they probably knew that that was her norm. And she was like, you're kidding me. And then she left me and ran over to some people she knew at another table and talked to them for 20 minutes about me and
By
about
the
the
way,
pieces I was
let
making.
me ask you too, because you got me interested in this. Where is
Yes.
this one piece located?
Which piece?
The one you talk about, the stage? Where?
So the Stage is a memorial piece that I built in front of Old Europe
Oh,
Pastries, the little coffee shop. They moved across the
right,
street. It was there on Broadway
right.
before you get to Pax Square and it's right next to what hotel? No, it's right next to one of the hotels,
Right.
but they moved across the street. They're on the same side as Pax Square and the museum.
No,
The
I know it.
Yeah.
So what's interesting as you're talking, Tony, and I like that Tony, I'll remember that too. But that's also kind of funny because that's how we met. We met through a mutual friend or become a friend of yours, but a good friend
Yes.
of Padma Devine. Was it last name is Padma?
I'll tell you in 2 seconds if I can get my phone.
Okay. But what's so funny is she's a good friend of mine, and she's telling me she met this guy, and I have to meet him instantly. And so she set up the same kind of meeting that just uh
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so it's funny. So people, that's kind of cool. So people see your work and they want to tell other people about it.
Padma Divine.
Divine, that's it. Yeah.
Dyvine. Yes.
But
Padma.
that's funny. So does that happen to you a lot that people see your stuff and then tell the world about you?
Well, that's how I met pebbles. That's how I've had other people. I mean, I have a list because I put a Christmas tree emoji in front of anyone in my contacts. So I literally go to my phone and I just go down to the emoji. I put in the Christmas tree, and underneath it are all the people that have contacted me in my contacts that I have associated with the Memorials Project. And if it's to do with if they're helping me at Asheville Brewing and Pizza, or they're a contact at Asheville Brewing and Pizza, they have a Christmas tree and the little movie reel. And that way I can just pull up and I can see anybody and everybody who's helped me or assisted. And right now I have over 100 names in my
Well,
list.
maybe I'll even be on it. I'll be 101 if I get in that list
Oh,
also.
you're already in the list, and
Thank you.
you've got headphones with yours.
Well, tell me, Tony, then about the thing specifically that Padma wanted us to talk about, and that's you have this memorial project. It's just an incredible thing to talk about. What is it exactly?
So when the storm happened, um, I watched a 120-year-old tree that I didn't know was 120-year-old old that was about 120 feet tall in our backyard, and it would turn this bright golden, beautiful yellow, just the same color as your Blaine's World sign behind you. And it would just hold it for a month easily. It was just this gorgeous, vibrant color in the sunlight. And during the storm, I watched it fall. And then we had another oak tree right behind the house, and that fell. And then there were two large oak trees that were side by side down near the stream that goes through the botanical gardens that runs behind our house from going from Luella's all the way to botanical gardens. And I watched all these fall, and it was just like, for me, trees are just life, they're breath. I mean, they're like friends. So when I saw those fall, I was just devastated. Well, I went to get water because none of us had water. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have anything. We had our windows open and we were making do, and it was like a good camping trip, but we didn't have to be in the flies and stuff. And you didn't have to have dirt in your house because you could clean it up. And so it was like a big camping trip for us. I mean, we made it through. We didn't have any devastation or problems. So we were just so thankful and, helped as many people as I could. And we cut up trees and stuff. But so I went to get water downtown behind Pack Square, behind the stage, because they had portable water there. And so when I pulled up and parked, I was pulled up and parked right there, looking toward the stage in that row of parking. And it was right toward the big, beautiful evergreen, the spruce that had been standing there forever. In 2021, with Blue Ridge Pride, I created the idea of, and had volunteers help me on it. It was called Cup of Me, and the tree was covered, this same tree that fell during the storm was covered in old clothing from lots of different people, many who had passed. And we, like this shirt, if you include cutting around the collar and just keep going, one continuous strand, you can get out of a long sleeve shirt, you can get about a 30-foot strand of random color, shaped ribbon. And so that's what the whole tree was full of, every color, every shape of clothing that had come from so many different people. And the reason it was called Cup of Me, because there were teacups, all different types of teacups hanging from those strings randomly all through. And the way of saying this is Cup of Me. So this is the cup of my life. I freely share it with you. May you drink it in and understand and see me, and may you do the same and feel comfortable with me, so that we can grow and learn from one another, and we can help each other go forward without shame or fear, and we can help others to do the same. So whenever I saw that tree down, when I went to go get water that day, it broke my heart. And I sat in my car and cried for 20 minutes. And I was like, wow, I got to do something with this tree. And then I went right back to my normal routine of trying to, get enough water to flush the toilets out of the creek behind the house and help a neighbor do something, or cut up and move another tree out of somebody's yard. And the next week I went back and I got water there too one morning. And I noticed that the city or the park officials had cut the tree up into shards and the limbs and everything and just piled it in the corner of the park. And I was like, that broke my heart again, but in a different way. I was like, what a disgrace. I mean, why do we have to cut so quickly? Why is it we can't look at death and pain and see it just like we do with family members? Can't we honor that for at least a moment without having to hide it in the ground and forget it forever? And so I was like, not on today's watch. So I figured out what I was going to do by the time I went to sleep. The next morning, I was there at 5 a.m. at the park, and I made the first piece that I made there for the park. It's right in the center section, just down the stairs from the building that houses the restrooms that are built in the center section of the park square, headed toward the stage. And I built a funeral pyre, and I used only a handsaw, not to bring attention to me. And I used a handsaw and I cut up all the limbs that had all the greenery all the way down the limb, and I made a funeral pyre. And it's about 9.5 feet tall, stacked there in that section of the park.
Now, what's cool about what you do, and I'm kind of laughing at it, is that it seems you just go ahead and do stuff and don't ask for permission. You just have an idea. Like
On
that
that
this,
one, on that one, because I knew that if they had cut it down and piled it,
right,
that it was probably going to leave quickly. And I knew
exactly.
that time was of the essence because I just found it the day before and I didn't know if they were scheduled to pick it up the next morning. And usually in a park system, anywhere that I've ever been, the next thing they do is they grind up the stump. And I was like, I can't let this happen. We have to honor this tree and this stump. We have to see nature and know that without it, we are nothing. I mean, without oxygen, we're dead. It only takes seconds, minutes. How long does it take? It doesn't take very long.
So did you
And
go about
we're dead.
did you go about getting permission to do any of this, or you just did it?
On that one, I didn't do it. I just went ahead, got out there without any permission. I didn't ask the city. I didn't know who to ask because
Right,
everybody was running. Nobody was in their offices. All
right.
offices closed. You couldn't even get anybody on the phone. You couldn't even try to talk to anybody. And everybody was scrambling, cutting up and helping in any way. People were even cutting down trees and hauling them off on private property without
Sure.
asking a question, just trying to help. And so I saw in that moment that I have to build a structure out of this. So that's when I built the funeral pyre, hand cut it with a handsaw that I borrowed from a neighbor, John and Suzanne. God bless them, love them. They live here in my neighborhood, and just they let me borrow their amazing saw, and I cut it all up by hand and made the funeral pyre. It's 3 logs with branches and then 3 more stacked, and it left 4 hollowed spaces, and I stuffed it full of all the refuse and the bigger limbs so it stabilized itself. And I just did that one without asking. And then immediately the next morning is whenever my partner, when Chris said, "Oh my gosh, look," and he showed me his Facebook on his phone, he said, "They're having a candle vigil." And I went, "Well, don't just stand there and look at me with your teeth in your mouth. Find out from the mayor's office or the city council who put this out. Find them and tell them I wanted to make an altar on the stairs of the stage. Find them right now." And so within 20 minutes of him telling me that, he had sent Maggie Ullman an email letting her know what we wanted to do. And I wanted to use the rest of the limbs that were piled there from the tree that were just piled up. And I wanted to make a big altar, like a big hug is what I ended up doing. It was like a big arms kind of close to your chest. And it was 25 feet across and it covered the stage, the center portion, the steps. And so he sent that after 20 minutes. 13 minutes later, she called him and he said, "You need to talk to my partner, Tony." And so I talked with her for a little bit and found out what she was wanting to do. And I told her I wanted to make an altar piece. And she went, "I don't know what that means, but okay." I said, "I've been doing this for years." Basically, you think about a wedding or a funeral that's real elaborate and you have a stage piece, an altar piece. I said, "That's what I'm going to make for the memorial." And the memorial was what, 1 week away?
Yes.
So it was like 6, 7 days, 5 days, something like that away. So I got off the phone with her 23, 28 minutes after we had found out about the posting on Facebook. And within 45 minutes of hanging up the phone, I was in Pack Square cutting and working on that.
By the way, we should mention two things, if I can,
Yes, yes,
Tony.
yes.
That one, first of all, so if people want to see this, where exactly is it in Pack Square?
So they took down the memorial. Um, they took down the memorial piece for the candlelight vigil, the big hug piece. It was just stacks of pieces, and I brought in pieces, limbs from Swananoa. I brought in a few limbs from Black Mountain, from Beaver Lake, Fletcher. I brought in limbs and things to add to that, so it wasn't just stuff from Pack Square, but it was from the region because people were coming that from all over. That piece was in front of the stage, the big white awning piece for the stage. That was in front of that. It was taken down after 2 weeks. The first piece that I made was the funeral pyre. That's in the center at Pack Square. And then when I found out about the candlelight vigil, that's when I took stump pieces that were there that they had cut up the trunk of the tree, and I put 6 pieces like seats for humanity. 6 speaks of the number of humanity, and I put those around the tree in an arc shape around the trunk, the base of it, which was only 5 feet in its root ball standing. And I stood the limbs that came from its canopy, covered its roots so it wasn't exposed. It was exposed, so we covered its roots, made it warm and not exposed, so you didn't just see root ball, and you focused on the trunk of the tree. And I was like, so this is humanity having a conversation with nature. And so there is a note that my partner Chris and I came up with that says, "Dearest spruce, thank you for your dappled shade and your many years of loving of humanity, of 50 years of protecting us from the sun and your oxygen that you gave us to breathe. You will be truly missed, but never forgotten." So something along that.
So if folks want to see that one though, that's still up.
That is so if you're standing at the stage,
right,
looking toward the big fountain at the top of the hill at the museum, to your extreme right is the memorial for the veterans of all the arms of all the arms of our national service, National Guard, etc. So there is a wreath in front of the bronze lady that I made at the same time, and every 2 weeks I put fresh fruit and other greenery that's fallen or that is in somebody's debris pile. I add it to the wreath to make it fresh and new. The first time was pears 3 weeks ago. Now it's oranges, persimmons, and grapefruit with extra greenery. And in about another week and a half, it'll have pomegranates and red roses and red berry branches.
And by the way, if I can give a shout out, as did you before, to Chris, your partner Chris, and his last name it's Tinkler, is it?
Tinkler, Tinkler.
But we should mention too that if they're interested in some of your stuff, which hopefully people will be, they should take a look at your website. And you want to talk about the website and Chris's role in that?
Give me a second. Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
I'll come back to that right away. So getting to the tree that fell, the spruce that fell, dearest spruce. So from the stage, facing and walking toward the fountain, the first piece that you'll see is in front of the bronze lady. That's the wreath, honoring all the first responders. Next, walking down the pathway, going away from the stage, walking toward the center of the park, you will see the tree down. There's a big pile of evergreen on it, and now it's 5 stumps. Somebody took one away. I don't know if they threw it away. Park Service or somebody kept looking like they were blowing leaves and throwing limbs on top of the stump, and so I keep going over and taking 45 minutes to pull the leaves out of it and take the twigs and stuff off of it. But that's dearest spruce, the note from humanity to the tree. Now there's 5 stumps, and 5 speaks of the number of grace. So we're being given grace, as I began with 6 stumps, for humanity to learn our lesson and be a part of helping nature to help ourselves. So that's the next one you'll see past the wreath and the memorial. So that's that. You walk to the road in front of you going toward the center of the park, and straight across from you, slightly on your right, is the funeral pyre, which is the first piece I made. That's in the center section. Then you'll walk through that center section. You go across the next section, going up across the next street, which goes straight to the fire department. On your left, you walk across. When you walk across, you'll see ribbons of fabric flowing in a tree to your right. and you have to either walk around toward the fountain or climb the big steps that you can sit on and climb up and underneath those 3 trees, which were donated by the city and a woman's family honoring her brother that died in 1981. She got in touch with me and said, "So are you cutting down these trees? What are you doing? Was that there?" All right, I just want to make sure. Honoring her brother. And there's a plaque that I have to find that's there in the park that's hidden underneath the grass and the soil. But that piece that's there is the eagle's nest, and it's all the refuse that was piled in the park from downed limbs. I had random people come by and help me randomly at midnight, and then the next morning I built it in a day or less, about 7 hours, and brought in limbs from other places, some sycamore limbs that were really big that were stacked next to Just Running, just right past Luella's on Merriman, and made a big eagle's nest, and it's got all sorts of stuff in it. Pine limbs from a tree that fell here near the botanical gardens that they had cut up, and I carried those pine limbs there. In the back of the eagle's nest, which is about 5 feet tall, comes up to about my chin. Now kids have been running over it, so it's gotten a little lower. And it's about 25 feet round. And there's a hole in the back of it, kind of like a Tom and Jerry mouse hole that you can climb inside. Inside is kapok, which is a substance, it is a natural substance. It's from the interior of a bean from the silk tree, and it's an alternative to down. Bugs don't like it, and it's non-allergenic to people that are allergic to feathers. So that's what it's lined with. So it's like the down of the mother bird. And then if you walk past the fountain up to the next light, that is Broadway. If you turn at Broadway and take a right, you walk to that next light, there's a hotel on the corner, and right past that hotel is the Old Europe pastries and coffee, and that's where the stage is, that other piece. And then if you drive straight on through town, 15 minutes, you'll be in Beaver Lake, and in Beaver Lake, where you see the lake on your left, housing and subdivision is on your right, there's a little building, and the boats for there. If you park in that little area around the boat, walk up above the boats, and right above that is the Phoenix. So it's there's several different ways of looking at it. It's the triptych of Holy Trinity with 3 doves. The doves are made of piles of leaves or limbs of spruce and several other types of trees. And so that is the Holy Trinity with 3 doves, or it's the 3 Phoenix rising, 3 sisters, and the other one is 3 people in coven, not to burn witches, but 3 people coming together in community, in coven, coming together, responding out of open hearts without fear, and love and compassion for one another, helping one another to go forward.
And what I was getting at before is that if folks want to see some of the stuff, there are 2 ways, of course. One, they can actually get in a car or walk to see them physically.
Right.
But the best thing, again, that's what I was mentioning, and looking at it now.
Right.
I guess Chris put together your website.
We talked it through, and it's like he keeps adapting and working on it in between working at Trader Joe's. And so the website is just simply my name, Tony, Tony, Bayles, BAYLES.com. And when you open the site, it carries you to kind of the things that are going on. It will tell you about, it shows the first thing that you will see when it opens is on the home page. It's the picture of one of the 3 sisters, or one of the 3 doves, the 3 Phoenix, the 3 in communion or coven. The second picture at the moment is the Helene Candlelight Vigil here in Asheville that was held on October the 22nd. And there's a picture of that. And then there's people's opinions and their write-ups, things that people have responded, and their reflection on how it made them feel and what they got out of gratitude.
And then I'll jump in. I'll kind of walk it through. So then next thing you go to the installations, right?
Right. If you push the 2 little bitty bars at the top right corner,
Right.
That's what carries you to home installations about volunteers. That's going to be changing here pretty soon. There'll be a Finding Waldo page. It's kind of like a little map. So it'll tell you, show you where they all are and tell you all the information and background history, details, trees, lots of information about all the individual sites. But when you go to the two bars at the top right corner, you see home installation. If you hit installation, that goes with the first piece is basically created. It goes from all the descriptor about the Helene Candlelight Vigil, there in Pack Square. Then it goes to Beaver Lake. And then it goes to the wreath. And it shows right now, it shows the Veterans for Peace came together. And I had just put the fresh pears and fresh yellow stuff into the wreath the day before. And Padma was the one that called me and said, well, or I said, Padma, can you give me a reflection on how this made you feel? Because you've already sent it to me, but can you give it to me and let me put it in on the website? And she said, yes, but I can't talk to you now because I got to go. I'm running late. I got to get to the veterans thing. And I went, what? So I was covered in pine rosin and stuff and filthy clothes. So I jumped in the shower, changed clothes, and I ran down and I recorded everything of their whole entire thing. It was lovely. But then it shows you all the pieces in order. Those are being updated because there are several more that have been added to this list. And then at the bottom, when you go to the two bars in the top right, you can actually go about, and that's going to tell you about me. My partner wrote up a lovely note, probably the best reflection of who I am and what I am and how I see the world and how I think. And I'm very grateful to Chris for writing that, I guess, a foreword or a descriptor. And then volunteer opportunities is next. And it just tells how people, if they want to help with this, right now, while I'm doing this podcast, I have Julia, I call her Julia Childs. She and a good friend of her is going to meet her. They are inside at Asheville Pizza and Brewing. We're doing an alien world. We're doing all sorts of planets out of fresh and things that fell during the storm. And we're building all these planets. Some will have lights on them. The lights are LED lights that are solar panels. And the solar panels on the planets will look like little rovers because we're making little solar panel dishes for them and wheels and stuff. So it looks like they're roaming around. But so they're helping me right now. I couldn't do without, I mean, it helps so much when I have volunteers because many cases I'm caring for one tree for this one piece that I'm planning for it was going to be a snow person. Then it turned into a smiley face. Now I think it is a Pinocchio. So it can stay up and it can be put up even in January. And you enter through its ears. So it's a place of hearing and not lying and
And
listening.
talk about that, Tony, too. If folks want to volunteer, they can go to the website, of course. But what are
They
you
can go to the
looking?
website, but the easiest and best way to do this
Right.
is literally my phone number, 317-518-3668. That's 317-518-3668. Do not call me. If you want to, you can, and I might answer. I might be hanging 30 feet in a tree trying to pull down some limbs that blew up there. But on the volunteer page, it shows you just text me your name, a headshot, how many people in your party would like to help, dates that you can help. Do you have a truck, trailer, or willing to help move materials? Do you have tools, chainsaws? So give me some information. And if you text me, probably between 2 and 4 a.m. the next day, I will be sending you a message thanking you for reaching out to me and letting you know the current thing that's going on because it might be that I can't get the greenery or I can't get it, into a space or I'm not ready to do that. I have to jump and finish another one that I'm on. So it's changing. It changes, but pretty much if I say I'm going to do something, I'm sticking to that plan unless I'm either sick or exhausted.
And talk
So,
if you
but
would, Tony,
they
if
can
you
just
would,
text me direct and give me that information.
gotcha.
Sorry, go
But
ahead.
talk about if they touch you, what are you looking for volunteers to do?
So I have one tree right now that is near the Bullington Gardens. It's in Hendersonville area. It's north northeastern Hendersonville is Bullington Gardens, and I was going to do a piece there, but they've got so much going on with maintenance and prepping for fall and preparing for spring for next year that they're just overwhelmed. So, but next door, right beside their, almost in their parking lot, is a house of a couple that live next door. And they have this huge, beautiful oak tree that fell without leaves on it. And that tree is covered in like multiple types of lichen. So it's all shades of green. And I'm still in the working point of this, and this is kind of premature to say this, but this is projecting. If you don't speak about what you want, you'll never get it. You'll never push forward. So I have a large piece that I'm wanting to do in Marshall. I've had the vision for it, and I've seen the pieces for it, and I'm collecting. I'm trying to meet with people in Marshall, and I'm wanting to do a large piece that is waves of Lawson cypress. And there's also a place not very far at a town community center. They're not very far from north from Bullington Gardens. And they had a row of these huge Lawson cypress fall. I want to use those as a tripod straight into the sandy beach on the opposite side of the bridge from downtown from the main square in Marshall. And those are going to be waves. So they have to be three, go down, two at this way and one in the center. And you wire them together making waves. So they're evergreen waves. And then they're illuminated with blue. So it looks like this blue-green color. There are nets to look like fishing nets. And those actually, excuse me, are the, it's ivy that was growing on the concrete wall as you get off of 240 going onto Merriman Avenue, and those rolled down during the storm. They keep rolling down periodically. Before the city took those away, I borrowed a truck from a friend, and at 2 o'clock one morning, I used a chainsaw, cut those at the ground, picked up all the refuse left after I cleaned up, blew off and cleaned up the street, have before and after shots. And a lovely friend that's not using a portion of their driveway, those are rolled up here and right beside my house. So those are going to be fishing nets, looking like they're floating. Then there are 4 to 6 foot long fish that are made out of limbs. Those fish are covered in Christmas lights. They have to plug in because the rock formation behind it blocks the sunlight, so I can't do solar there. So it has to plug into an adjacent building. It's not on the property. If you cross the bridge, when you cross it, the old school was over to your right, the big convention center. They use it for all sorts of things. It was flooded and lots of damage there. The building that I want to do it in front of on the little sandy beach is to the left, just right after you cross. It's housing. It's apartments or condos. I'm not sure. But I think they do parties and events downstairs in the main portion of the building. I think it was either the gel at one point. It was a glove factory. I don't remember all the details, but I spoke with some people there right after dark one night. And the whole entire hill behind it, this rock formation, I want to find the lights that actually do the glistening kind of movement to make the whole entire rocky hill at night look like blue and lavender colored water, along with those waves of evergreens. You can walk through the whole entire sculpture. Floating nets that look like they were fishing nets. And then there are fish that aren't in the nets. They're flying in the air over the waves. And sitting, reclining, with her tail up, is a huge mermaid, 20 feet tall. And she's made out of lichen branches. So that is a volunteer possibility. I'm still trying to talk to and see if we can get warehouse space. One of the spaces that was flooded that is no damage as far as black mold growing in, so that I can have it open so people can help me, and I leave instructions to build her and the fish. She's 20 feet tall, and she has her left hand is up in the air, and she's holding a huge thousands of white lights filling made out of downed limbs she's holding a huge starfish. And the message of this and her hair is made of roots from trees that are down by the hundreds of thousands in the whole region. Her hair is made of roots. Her hair will be up to 16 feet long, full head of hair. And then I'm wanting to do a lye, mud, and yellow clay rinse basically over all the roots. So she has this golden yellow mane, and it's all natural product mixed with just a little bit of lye to help it lock into place so it doesn't wash away. Unless somebody tells me something different that would be better. Hint, hint. And her hair will have yellow lights in it. Her whole entire body is shades of the green lichen and tons of pink lights. And the lichen branches that I would love to have is that one tree that's in that one amazing space, because Bullington Gardens and around that area, every tree is covered in lichen that feels like you're in the rainforest. So that tree I need to transport from here to, I need somebody to cut that tree up into chunks, cut every limb, save every length of limb, put it on an 18 or 20-foot trailer, hog trailer, I don't care what it's in, just get it from point A to point B. And I want to cut that tree down and clean it up for the man and the husband and wife that own that little house. I want to cut that tree up and I want to transport it all to make the mermaid in Marshall.
Listening to you, Tony, it seems that you certainly have your work cut out for you for the next week, I guess. But down the road, I'm just fascinated by this. What do you see yourself doing 5 years from now?
My passion, and I just mentioned that I just met Pebbles
Right.
earlier. So she told me a lot of stories really fast. And the next day she was like, I've got to get ready for Thanksgiving because I've got 14 people coming to my house. My whole family's there. And I went to her house and I went, wait, you're trying to prepare and you want everybody at one table? I was like, not on today's watch, girl. I'm here at your house tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. She's like, let the boys and my husband get out of the house. 9 o'clock. So she called me at 8 o'clock and said, get over here to 5 Points. Let's eat breakfast and talk about this before we go to the house. Okay, bye. So I spent 30 hours nonstop. I was at her house at 9 a.m. I did not leave her house until 12:30 the next day on Thanksgiving Day. Her family was coming in at 11. They were showing up and I finished redecorating, cleaning, and using limbs from a spruce tree that her parents planted when her twin brothers, her youngest brother died at 14, and of the twins, and he was buried in Riverside Cemetery here in town in Montford. And she said, Tony, this tree fell and it just breaks my heart because I feel like I lost my parents at 20. She said, I feel like I lost them again. And the root ball turned up. She said, I feel like I could just reach in the ground and wipe off the edge of my brother's casket. And her other twin brother died in his 40s. He's buried there. So everybody in her family is buried there, her two twin brothers and her parents. And so that tree was 50 years old and it fell. And she said, this broke my heart and hurt me deeper than I even imagined from everything about the storm. And she volunteered and helped people. She ran around in a rover, I think, or whatever it's called, and helped and carried food and Greek food to everybody. And so I was like, girl, I'm coming to your house. So I spent 30 hours at this lady's house and made it ready for her family. And when they walked in, one of her relatives, her husband's sister and his 91-year-old father were on the way. The sister came in. She didn't know the story. She didn't know anything. She just was amazed by the house. She just stood there and cried. She didn't even know me. She walked over and just hugged me and held on. She was like, I can't believe this. So anyway, but that's my passion is taking everything that someone is, just like we have to look at our bodies. And if we don't like our body, we need to change our thinking because we're beautiful as we are. So we make the best out of who and what we are without clothes. We have to look at ourselves and go, this is who I am. And after you do that, then you go, well, I don't like it. So I'm either going to grow my hair longer. I'm going to cut it all off. I'm going to wear just this color. I like short skirts. I like long pants, or I like tight shirts, or I like vests and jackets and scarves. I mean, man or woman, child, whether we are on the spectrum or not on the spectrum, whether we are straight, gay, whether we're a man or woman or somewhere in between, it doesn't matter. We have to be at peace with who we are. So that's the way I am in a house. Make the best. The house has a story. You have a story. Your husband has a story. Your dogs have a story. And your furniture tells a story. So we have to find the story that they all want to be on together and be happy with. And so that's my passion. I love doing that. So, but inside, outside, decorating, consulting, creating, making, and this for me, the memorial structures are basically like a big event, like a wedding, like the Indian wedding that was what, $50 million, $50 billion, the wedding in India that was insane. So they did huge installations. So I've done this through the years in Dallas, in Atlanta, Chicago. I've played around with all this my whole life. So you take something that seems like nothing and you make it into somethings and prepare for an event that transforms us to a different place just by using nature in a different way. Flowers, the Rose Bowl parade. I mean, that's what the Rose Bowl parade is. It transforms us. It carries us to a magical place just in its creative style and its imagination. It brings a smile to a child's face or to an adult.
Wrap up if I can, Tony.
Yes,
Folks want to find out more about all the cool stuff you're doing or going to do in the future. Again, we'll give the reference to the website was, I'll have you repeat it.
it's TONY, B as in boy, AYLES.com. That's Tony Bayles.com.
And then you mentioned the other thing you mentioned for folks to get in touch with you is at the same website. I'm looking at it. You have your phone number. I'll have you repeat that.
Yeah, 317-518-3668.
And the thing I learned, if they want to reach you, to send you a text.
Yeah, if you send me a text and send me a face pic and just say, I'm interested in helping you with your memorial structures, and then I can just prompt you. But if you just tell me information of what you want to know and how you need it, usually within 24 hours, I've texted you probably the next morning between 2 and 6 a.m.
And I'd like to thank you then for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World website. I'd also like to thank your partner, Chris Tinkler, for helping us set this up. And hopefully we'll bump into each other sometime in real time in the future, man.
I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure. It's been nice to be able to talk this out and go, wow, I really like this. So on these memorial structures, my plan is if I was trying to do as many as I could before Christmas, before December 1st. I don't plan, if the mermaid can go into place sometime in January or February and prepare for their May event that they usually have, their big mermaid festival, whatever. I'm making a big bee piece, which is the old basket that is upside down that bees live inside, the old Victorian way of beekeeping. That's supposed to go there in Fairview at Community Garden. Actually Padma works there.
Right, yeah. Right down the street from me. I know what you mean.
Yeah, the name of it is, so sorry, I'm taking your time now. The name of it is escaping me.
I'll try to get it too. But yeah, it's right down the street and it'd be a great place for you to have your stuff also.
Yeah, but we're doing a large piece and there's tons of bees in it. It's been approved. We just have to get a crew of people together. And it's a 25-foot wide, about 20 feet tall. It's just a big round basket. It has windows into it that look like hexagon-shaped beehive holes. And then there are wooden cut pieces of limbs cut on a diagonal with little bees, and there are burned lines of black on them, and we're aging them in the same way we're doing the mermaid's hair with the yellow. And so there'll be bees all on the inside and on the outside of it. And that's there, and they're wanting to burn that one at some point.
And it also seems to me, listening to this, that you're not planning to get much sleep between now and whenever, because I don't know how you do it, but you keep yourself busy.
I was home for an hour and 45 minutes, dead asleep after my 30-hour visit. My partner woke me up and I went, who, where, what? We're going, what? Huh? What? Oh, now I'm getting with you. I'm sorry. Woke up, went to dear friend's house here around the corner. They had lunch for us for Thanksgiving. It was amazing. Came home, fell asleep immediately, and we slept for 9 hours and 45 minutes last night. And so now I'm overworking. So I'm getting some sleep in there. It's a lot.
Anyway,
But the
stay
more
healthy.
health,
I'm sorry,
I
what?
reiterate, the more help that I have, if I had 60 people helping me, going to pick up, helping to prep and clean, because I'm cleaning spaces. I mean, I blew off all of the entryway of leaves and I'm cleaning as I go. So I'm reworking flower beds and cleaning as I do this. So having help is huge if I could have help, because I know how to manage a lot of people really fast and keep us all on the same page, but do it with love and compassion.
Anyway, stay healthy, man. And like, thank you. Also, thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And like I said, hopefully we'll bump into each other sometime in the not too distant future. Thanks,
Blaine,
man.
I appreciate it and I look forward to it.
Okay, be well.